Welcome to this explainer. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever woken up and just felt this overwhelming urge to hit a giant reset button on your entire life? You know that feeling, right? Where you just absolutely know your circumstances need to change, but the sheer scale of the task makes you want to just crawl right back under the covers? Well, we have literally all been there. But today, we're breaking down some truly fascinating clinical insights. We're going to look at a structured framework from psychological practice that outlines how a complete life overhaul isn't just some fantasy, it's actually highly achievable.
It's incredibly common to want to change your current situation, and honestly, that desire is completely valid. But rather than just crossing your fingers and hoping things get better, or, relying on those fleeting little bursts of 3 a.m. motivation, what if there was a structured way to guarantee a transformation? Based on clinical observations by psychologist Sandra Bueno, who is an expert in logotherapy, a complete life overhaul is absolutely possible. You just have to focus your energy on a specific, clinically tested 4-part framework.
All right, let's dive right into this. 6. That is the number of months we're talking about here. Now, I want to be crystal clear on this. This isn't some cheap motivational fluff, and it's not just an arbitrary number pulled out of thin air. This time frame is based on direct clinical observation. The source material notes that when patients begin to genuinely address specific areas of their lives, it is virtually impossible for them to remain the exact same person 6 months down the line. That's how profound the changes are.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the 6-month reset itself, and then we'll walk through the biological, psychological, social, and spiritual pillars, before finally wrapping up with how you can take control. Okay, starting off with Section 1, the 6-month reset and the foundations of change.
So our lives are deeply interconnected. You really can't just isolate one part of yourself and expect the rest to stay entirely untouched. When you treat and nurture one single area, it inevitably bleeds into and transforms the whole thing. It's kind of like a domino effect. Now, pay attention to the inclusion of the word spiritual here. A lot of traditional psychology models view humans as strictly biopsychosocial beings, meaning biological, psychological, and social. But logotherapy, which is Sandra Bueno's specialized clinical approach, includes a fourth, absolutely crucial element, the spiritual dimension. To truly reset your life, you have to acknowledge that you're a complex being who needs holistic care across all 4 of these specific areas.
Moving on to Section 2, the biological pillar. This is your physical foundation.
If you are sitting there not knowing where to start right here. Why? Because your physical body is the area over which you have the most immediate, tangible control. Let's be real, it is way easier to choose to drink a glass of water or go for a quick walk than it is to immediately untangle years of deep emotional trauma. We're talking about the basics, regulating your sleep routine, dialing in your diet and nutrition, getting regular physical activity, and actually keeping up with those annual medical checkups. The source material emphasizes a fascinating psychological trick here. When you actively care for your physical body, your brain automatically gets motivated to start caring for the other areas of your life too.
I absolutely love this practical analogy. So often we feel chronically tired or unmotivated, and we just assume we're suffering from this deep existential dread or some massive psychological block. But sometimes, honestly, you don't need a life coach, you literally just need a spinach salad for some iron, or maybe a hormone balance check. Physical neglect can so easily masquerade as a really complex psychological issue. If you fix the physical first, you instantly clear away so much of that extra noise.
Which brings us to Section 3, the psychological pillar, facing the inner self.
Once the physical body is supported, we have to look inward. And, okay, let's be totally honest here. Looking in the mirror without any filters is often the hardest, least pleasurable step of this entire reset process. Facing your own emotions isn't a passive activity. It requires intense courage, effort, and serious dedication. But the payoff, it's immense. Whether you do this through formal therapy, which is highly recommended by the way, or through deep, dedicated self-reflection, the ultimate goal is to understand your behavioral patterns. Why do you react the way you do? Why do you self-sabotage? Understanding these patterns gives you autonomy. It basically hands you back the steering wheel to your own mind.
Think of your unresolved psychological issues as dragging heavy, clunky iron chains behind you everywhere you go. It's exhausting. The source material uses this exact imagery. When you finally stop and actually look at those chains, when you dive into your psychological makeup and understand your past, you aren't just navel-gazing. You are finding the key to unlock those chains. True self-awareness leads directly to real, tangible freedom in your everyday life.
Moving right along to Section 4, the social pillar.
and the sheer power of connection. A really common objection we see here, especially nowadays, is that making friends is just incredibly hard. And it's true, it takes a lot of work, especially if you consider yourself an introvert. But the clinical reality is that humans biologically need connection. We are completely wired for it, whether we like it or not. You've probably heard this quote before, but seriously, take a second to reflect on your own inner circle right now. Who are you allowing to influence your mental health? Who are the 5 people you spend the absolute most time with? Because your social environment acts as either a toxic drain or a massive amplifier for your overall well-being.
The stakes here are shockingly high. Toxic relationships don't just put you in a bad mood, they can literally make you physically sick. The source material notes that many illnesses are psychosomatic. In clinical terms, this means emotional stress from bad relationships actually manifests as real physical symptoms in your body. Conversely, healthy connections heal us. And a massive part of this social pillar in logotherapy is contribution. Being useful to others, just doing something for someone else, shifts your perspective entirely and adds this profound sense of meaning to your existence. Now we arrive at Section 5, the spiritual dimension, finding your anchor. Now, I know this is often the most polarizing pillar, so let me be very clear. We are stepping completely beyond traditional religious dogma here. You absolutely do not need to be traditionally religious to unlock the immense psychological benefits of this pillar. The crucial point is understanding what logotherapy calls the noetic dimension. Basically, this means having faith in something greater than yourself, a purpose, an intention, or a guiding consciousness. The source material stresses that everyone, including staunch atheists and agnostics, has this latent dimension. It's simply the fundamental human search for meaning and for answers. So why does this matter for a life reset? Well, because faith, and again, whether that is a traditional religion, a deep meditation practice, or a profound daily commitment to gratitude, acts as a vital psychological structure. Think of it as an anchor in a storm. When life gets incredibly difficult, connecting with something larger pulls us out of our own isolation. It gives us a structural support system to lean on when our own individual strength just isn't quite enough. Which brings us to our final section. Take control. Your next steps.
All right, we've laid out the foundations. Now it is time to bring all these disparate pieces together into one unified strategy for your 6-month reset. The biological pillar grounds your physical body. The psychological pillar untangles your emotions. The social pillar builds up your external relationships. And the spiritual pillar anchors your deepest purpose. If you focus dedicated action on these 4 specific areas for just 6 months, the clinical consensus is absolutely clear. It is downright impossible to remain the stagnant person you were when you started.
And this is the core empowering message from the source material. You are the protagonist of your own story. Do not sit around waiting for someone else to magically fix your life for you. If you feel stuck in one of these pillars, go out and seek specific help. Go see a doctor for the biological, find a great therapist for the psychological, lean on a trusted friend for the social, or seek a guide for the spiritual. Take the reins and make it happen. So I want to leave you with this final thought to really chew on. You have the framework, you know the timeline. Which of these 4 areas, biological, psychological, social, or spiritual, are you going to take action on today? Because the 6-month clock, it starts the moment you decide to take that first step.